user-generated content's not going away. There's actually a proliferation of this type of content. I understood the value of these videos probably better than anyone. And so I quit my job at Discovery and started buying this intellectual IP that most people discounted, but I knew the market rate for it. And so started Jukin Media for my apartment, and 12 years later, it turned into a 300-person company, offices in LA, New York, London, New Delhi. We built technology to help us find quote-unquote viral videos in UGC before anyone else seen them before. Built a marketplace to license and distribute that content. And so it was on every morning show, talk show, Good Morning America, Ellen, Tosh.0, Rob Dyrdek, if you know that show, Ridiculousness. We powered all their videos for the first 10 seasons. It became kind of a powerhouse, and we're kind of at the right place at the right time. We really were behind the scenes, but at the forefront of internet culture. And guys like this kid from Ohio, we discovered, got him very famous very quickly. His name was Logan Paul. Sorry about that. But we also was very forefront, like the water bucket challenge, and if you guys know the pizza rat video, or some of these iconic zeitgeist pop culture moments, David After the Dentist, we owned and helped monetize and help create that virality. And so then we also created some of the first digital content brands on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, had big partnerships with them. At our heyday, we were doing about 4 billion views a month. One of the largest publishers. We're selling brand integration, selling media. One of the first brands, it's still one of the biggest today, was called Fail Army. I don't know if you guys know that brand. It's very juvenile of guys falling over and getting hurt.
I mean, I love
but
that.
Believe it or not, it does really well. We had the biggest pet brand. We got very early in the FAST channel game. We went back and started producing a handful of TV shows, digital shows. And you know, it was that kind of ahead of its time, being early in user-generated content and kind of the influencer game. And then we sold that business in August of 21.
All right, let's give it up for that, because you mentioned a few things. You talk about user-generated content and then influencers. There was no influencer conversation even when you started, and so you helped really usher that forward. Now, going forward in what you're going to do with Lost In, talk about the travel space, but I want you to explain how user-generated content from what you did with Jukin to now with influencers, how that balance comes in from the startup standpoint and utilizing those relationships.
Yeah, so kind of in the segue to going into Lost In a little bit, we wanted to create what we did at Jukin, like a 2.0 version. We were very early, as I mentioned, in UGC, and we had to educate the market. We had to educate the market around rights management and uses, because people thought just because it was on the internet, they thought they could steal that content and just use it for whatever use they want, and that's not the case. We actually won a really big lawsuit. And fun fact, Doug Emhoff was our lawyer for 5 years, and he helped us win a pretty landmark case on that. We had to educate the market, and we also realized that we were putting brands and ads in front of UGC or in front of influencers. It was never, really done before. And so we had to kind of create the standardization and create that marketplace, create the rates in licensing and digital licensing, which never existed before. And so, with some ways we were making up as we went, but we were also kind of following the trends too. And so when I was thinking about Lost In, what I wanted to do, like, what is that 2.0 version? We're very early in UGC, and that was very niche. But I mentioned we had kind of all these content verticals, the pets, the comedy, the inspiration. I think this time around, I really wanted to go deep in one vertical and really kind of find passion points around a particular vertical. And so I kind of went into travel thinking that people are so passionate about travel, yet when I asked them where they go for inspiration, they couldn't name any really places. They go to Google, and then that takes them to some random website, and then they go on TripAdvisor. Everyone fucking hates TripAdvisor. And then they end up on Yelp, and then they have all these tabs open, and then they're just kind of, curating this content themselves. So I wanted to build a community of like-minded travelers for a very young particular audience through a very particular lens. And so we're going after the millennial premium economy traveler and go really deep in that space. Instead of going a mile wide, we're going to go a mile deep.
So going after this premium traveler, curious, when you had your exit from Jukin until coming up with this, desire to go in the travel space, I know your brother took some big travels. Were there travels that you took that maybe helped with this inspiration?
I think my brother, who when the business sold, so he was an early employee at Jukin, and now he's a co-founder in Loston. When he left the parent company, he went on a 7 month hiatus. Him and his wife quit her job at Apple. She was working in marketing, and they went to like 22 countries, 50 cities in 7 months. And I was a little bit inspired with that, but I was also wondering is how they planned those trips. For me, I think I've always had the travel bug. I think I've always been curious. I think, working in media, I was very lucky to go to a lot of exotic places that I never had the chance to go. So a lot of conferences, a lot of trade shows, a lot of speaking engagements. And so I always found that super interesting. But I think what I find more interesting is that how content can actually move people, and I'm actually giving a talk on this tomorrow, is the power of content, how it can transform an industry. And you've seen that a few times on a big macro level in the last few years. And what I'm talking about, it's really recent right now, is the White Lotus. They're really calling it the White Lotus effect, what it has on wherever the show takes place. Sicily was sold out. They saw go up by 400%. Reservations in hotels. Before that, it was Hawaii. Now it's going to be Thailand. And there's been a few times in history where content has really kind of transformed the industry. I think it happened with Formula One, with Drive to Survive. There's a direct correlation of that show impacting the entire industry. You saw it with UFC. You saw it 20 years ago, which one of my favorite movies that just came out again, or just had its 20-year anniversary, Sideways, when Paul Giamatti says, "I'm not fucking drinking Merlot," and he's a big fan of Pinot Noir. Guess what? Pinot Noir sales went like this. Merlot dropped like this, and it's all because of that line. And so I want to kind of capture that on a micro level through travel. People are so passionate about travel, but when it comes from a media perspective, all the media companies in travel are failing. And those are the Condé Nast of the world. Those are the Afar magazines. That is the Travel Channel. They're all going like this, yet travel spending and passion is going through the roof. It's a $13 trillion industry. Yet from a media perspective, there's a big disconnect. And so we want to fill that gap.
So you've identified what that gap's going to be for you as the startup. Coming from the first startup to now, and you talked about, you created a lot of the landscape for UGC. You kind of made up a lot of things as you went along. What are the lessons? What are the things you're going to be implementing in Lost in that maybe you saw were some of the tactics that really worked well for you at Jukin?
So I'll say this, being a second-time founder, and I think there's a lot. How many founders are there in the room right now? Yeah, so most of the group, or at least half, are founders. I mean, it is a hard, lonely road and path. I mean, you're a founder as well. You take a lot of sacrifices, and you have to sacrifice. And I think there's no other way to do it, is to sacrifice your life, and that includes your health, that includes your family, that includes your relationships, and you just have to go down this lonely path, and it's really hard. It's really a struggle, and you have to give it all you can, and I believe that is the only way to really do it. I think people who are successful, there is a lot of luck, but a lot of luck comes when hard work is there, and hard work kind of meets luck. And so I think there's no other way to do that. When I think about this kind of second time around, I thought maybe it might be a little easier. I definitely had the connections in the media space, definitely had some high-level connections in the endemic brand space. But man, there is no fucking shortcuts, even the second time around. We got a little bit of a layup starting off, but execution. You still have to come at it from building one step at a time. And I think that's a lesson learned that I'm learning this second time around. I knew it was going to be kind of difficult, I knew kind of hard, but I didn't know it was going to be the exact kind of hard, the same kind of effort and hardness that would be there. Yeah.
It's interesting. And I think, how many founders here have had more than one company? Okay, great. And I think it's an interesting point that you brought up, that the first time you really just didn't know, and you kind of figured it out along the way. This time you had a little bit of a kickstart. You guys raised some money to start. You have some relationships. where do you see this then for going for the future landscape for what you're going to do with travel and in that relationship for the startup?
So Jukin was kind of interesting that we raised very little capital. So we had 300 employees. We had all these global offices, huge office, 33,000 square feet in Culver City. Really great office space. We only raised $6 million, and we never touched it. It sat on the balance sheet.
Wow.
So we were profitable from day one. This time around, I said, I'm not going to be bootstrapping. I'm going to raise some money right out of the gate, which I did. And I thought, again, that will kind of help you, propel you, and it will to a certain point. But it really comes back, again, to execution. And there are no cutting corners, no skipping steps. It's really about, and I come from the MVP kind of philosophy, the minimum viable product and everything that we do. If you guys don't know, not familiar with that, Lean Startup by Eric Ries changed my life. When I read that book and I've handed out to employees, and just understanding that process and the iteration and learnings and taking bite-sized chunks instead of big swings. I think in a lot of ways, money doesn't solve your problems. In a lot of ways, it actually adds more money and more problems.
More money, more problems.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I think investors want you to spend it, and then they want you to raise more, and they want you to spend that, and they're going for a grand slam, and sometimes, a home run or a triple is life-changing. And, sometimes you have to make sure you're aligned, and money doesn't solve all those issues.
No, so it gives you that runway to kind of start, but then, as you said, execution, accountability kind of comes there.
Yeah, you can't skip that part. Yeah, absolutely. Especially, and then you have a fiduciary.
Right, because then you have to obviously answer to somebody. So, again, looking at Jukin, and then here we are right now with Lost In, and you've raised this money, runway going forward. How are you going to be then utilized to then have this, I guess, brand network that takes over the travel space? What is that runway going forward?
As far as
for you guys, again, you just named all these brands in the travel space that aren't holding up to it. And so I guess I want to direct this question towards the founders here. And what do you see from a startup? You're not completely bootstrapping. You raise some money. You have a different mentality and model as far as how you're bringing in companies into the fold.
Yeah.
So where is this? I think you have such a great mindset and good forward vision. How are we from a startup here then taking next steps?
Yeah. So in my thesis of trying to go from 0 to at least 3, if I have to reach 10, we did come at it from a very different approach. That we raised venture capital, but we also did I would say a PE light roll-up strategy where we rolled up a bunch of distressed assets that were in the travel space, and to help us get that starting off point. And so we only raised $4 million, but we were able to really stretch that. So the company Lost In, I didn't create or found. I found this iteration. They do these actually really physical guidebooks, what I thought was super interesting. And so even though I was just making fun of the Condes and the Travels of the world, I think their approach was from a glossy magazine style approach, where it doesn't work in this digital native world that we live in. I think it's going to take somebody like us coming from it from a digital first point of view, coming in there and thinking about ways to optimize efficiently, and find scalability without going out and sending a bunch of reporters or videographers around the world. You can leverage boots on the ground. You can leverage content's already being created by influencers. You can license UGC. And so for us, we identified some, I would say, undervalued assets that were kind of struggling independently. But if we brought those assets together all under one roof, we can create something big and great. And so some of that jumping off point was Lost In. Like I mentioned, they do these really amazing physical books. They cover, I would say, the culture of a city through the lens of a local and uncovering hidden gems. It's less about the cliches. So Lost In has done 28 different cities. Lost in London, Lost in Paris. The Lost in Paris book doesn't talk about the Eiffel Tower, doesn't talk about the Louvre, but it talks about the bakery that you never heard of before. It talks about this Parisian street artist, or it talks about this rapper that you have to go check out that's up and coming. And so it's really kind of getting into the heart of the city and really talking about kind of different aspects through this millennial lens. And that's what I really love about it. It has this edgy feel, has this indie feel. I love that we're here in Venice Beach, and thank you, Kin, for hosting. Our first book under our banner, our office is in Venice Beach. I have a lot of love for Venice Beach. It's a beautiful day here in Venice Beach. Our first book under our banner was Venice Beach, Lost in Venice Beach. Guess what? We didn't talk that much about the boardwalk because Venice has so much to offer other than the boardwalk, the canals, the walking streets, the gastronomy, the fashion, the subculture. And that's what we really like diving in. And so when we acquired Loston, we really liked that brand and what it stood for and what other assets can we pair that up with. So then we went out and bought BuzzFeed. We bought their travel vertical, which came with 10 million fans. We bought a few other kind of micro communities. And then all of a sudden we had this really great IP, this really great brand, this tone, this identity. And then we had 10 million fans that we reskinned and integrated under Loston. And so that kind of helped us get to this next level that we're at right now. So I do think we bypassed a few years. That being said, that execution, there's again no cutting corners there.
No, there's no golden ticket right there. You still have to, as you said, execution. I do want to talk a little bit about these guidebooks because I think this is a very interesting space that you're in because people sometimes are very blinders on digital, where I like that you also have the guidebook element of it. And you just kind of shared, you just came out with your Tokyo book, the Venice Beach book. I think, being in the travel space, there's a lot to talk about. People want to do off the beaten path. And you hit it pretty well with these guidebooks. How does that complement then what you're going to do digitally with content creators? And then, as you said, you did kind of skip a few steps, but you still have the execution.
Yeah, so I think in the world, the ecosystem that we're really creating, it kind of starts with the guidebooks. And in that, we also have social. And so we now have a pretty big social following where we're posting kind of news-related posts under kind of the travel culture lens that we're going after. Not hard-hitting news, but what is that kind of travel culture that our audience wants? We're creating videos. We're leveraging other influencers. I'll circle back around there. We have a pretty robust newsletter, and then we also do real-life events. And so we bring our community together. Sometimes we eventize around the book launch. But last night we hosted an event with another media partner in LA here. You were at one of the events. What did you think of it?
I was at one of them. I was at the book launch for Venice Beach. It was a fantastic party.
Yeah.
A lot of good people, good community event.
And you could tell we got people from the community involved, which is really kind of cool. We focus and highlight independent businesses, staying away from the chains. We've built up now this really great credibility and authority, and we never want to lose that credibility or authority. We've built that up. We have now that trust, that audience. So when our audience sees us online, sees our books, and they come to see us in person, we want to continue that continuous loop of trustworthiness and credibility.
Yeah. I want to go back to this influencer conversation from the original UGC with Jukin, and not that the skipping steps from what you're doing now, and it's a different way to go about a startup. But again, back to you still got to do the execution. How many of these influencers that you helped kind of launch did you then start calling to tell them about what you're going to do with Lost In and use this as a strategy for the startup? And is this something that founders should look at as far as relationships as they start to grow what they're going to do?
So there's a lot of talk around the creator economy. It's like all of a sudden, in the zeitgeist of a lot of conversations, particularly in tech as well. I think it's interesting kind of being at the forefront of it and seeing it very early on. For us, we are not focusing on getting the biggest reach. We're not focusing on getting the biggest influencers. For first and foremost, it's got to be an influencer that kind of aligns with our brand, with our spirit, and with our goals. I think I actually probably hate travel creators more than anyone. It's funny that I say that. I really do. I think they're kind of the worst. They're inauthentic. I think our brand is authentic. Our brand is organic. Our brand is homegrown. And unfortunately, you see all these creators, and a lot of it is based on barter. And so the hotels won't even pay them. They'll say, "Hey, come to the hotel for free," and they'll do some posts about it. And I think that's not good for the industry. It's not good for the long tail. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of other industries in the beauty makeup space are kind of like that. And I think it's always trying to find that authenticity, and that's what we're looking for. So it's not the biggest following count. It's people that align with our brand. Also, influencers in the travel space get burnt out faster than anybody else because they're on the road so much. They're traveling. That's also not good for your health. Mental health, it's not good. Even I think the ultimate god of travel, a creator, is Anthony Bourdain. I mean, at a certain point, unfortunately, that burnout is super real, especially with travel creators. We would also love to find a travel couple, a creator to bring into our network to create some content to incubate them. And for us, we're licensing the content, we're incubating them, we're investing in them, we're creating original content them. We want to grow with them too. When it comes to couples, I can't stand the couples that are travel creators. If you guys find one or you know anyone, please let me know. They're the most unauthentic people who are so happy and smiling and cheering. I mean, have you been on vacation with your partner? I mean, there are some really great moments, but like, man, I mean, we get lost, we lose a room key. There's some sort of argument about something else. I mean, I love my wife. We get along really great, but I want to see some of that rawness. That's what I find interesting. I want to see the couple that kind of gets lost a little bit and are yelling about directions at each other.
So true. So real. Sorry, imagining just fights in my head, just from travels. We all get that. How many founders here are working in media with influencers and in that space? Okay. Again, I bring this up because I think you created a lot of this conversation with the UGC side. And for the founders here, and then I guess for your own direction, what are you tapping into? You mentioned licensing content with creators and influencers now. How are you taking what you learned before to establish this network going forward? And the tail end of that is, ultimately, is this just going to be a digital, like through social channels, or are people going to want to come to your channel, to lostin.com, to watch content?
I think hopefully, and what it's happening right now, that we are becoming kind of that connected tissue through this very particular lens. I think, again, the bigger travel media companies, the Condés, they try to cater to everybody. You either try to cater to everyone, or you try to cater very niche, where it's like adventure travel, or just a certain type of travel, or it's families. And that's it. It's either everyone, families, or and you can throw luxury in there actually as well, the one percenters, but it's super competitive within the one percenters. For us, we're going after this millennial traveler. We're going after the traveler that's a little bit more cosmopolitan, that's maybe already been to that destination, and they want to come there a second time and uncover those hidden gems. We're for travelers, we're not for tourists. Our folks are working professionals. They have discretionary income, and they prioritize travel and experiences as really who their lifestyle is. And so we want to foster that community. And so the content that we put out there is very curated, and it's finding those like-minded folks within that community. And I will emphasize the word community. We really want to build a community of like-minded travelers.
Is it also then ultimately for you to generate the UGC back to travelers that you're going to foster? And maybe the people who you're not licensing their content, but maybe they inspire someone else that comes back to you?
I think eventually, I think right now it's highly curated, but I think eventually we'll definitely open up the floodgates or find different kind of platforms to open those floodgates. We're experimenting with WhatsApp groups, experimenting with Facebook groups. We want there to be kind of a forum and platform where members could meet, but we're experimenting with kind of different avenues right now. An application as well.
So you've been lost in a travel startup just over a year, maybe a little more?
We announced our company in June. So
almost a year.
But started on it 6 months before that. So it depends. It's hard to put an exact date.
What's been the biggest surprise as a travel startup in the travel industry?
So I just went to ITB, which is like the biggest travel conference in the world, 120,000 people. I think I'm shocked and surprised. It is very still archaic, the industry. I mean, even the passes We had to print them out ourselves. Like going into that was so weird. Yeah, we had to pay, like not an app, not a thing to download. Like we had to pay them, print them out ourselves, and then I had to staple them, but I didn't, or cut them off. I didn't have scissors, so I'm ripping it. Had to put the lanyard in. Like I was just, but it speaks so much of how the agency is. Do you remember? You've been there, yeah. It is so archaic and so 20 years back. I'm no spring chicken anymore, but I was the youngest in the room by 20 years at a lot of these places. It is essential. The people that work there, they all kind of know each other. They love each other, and then they hate each other. It's super fractional and fragmented at the same time. So we were there. So ITB is really for the DMOs, and if you don't know what a DMO is, it's the tourism board that every city, state, country has. And so, you have come visit Spain, come visit France, come visit Zanzibar. I mean, every country around the world. But at the same time, you have to work with the tour operators, which I didn't know how powerful they are in the industry. You have the travel agents. You have the software tech companies, whether that's like Inventory Cloud or the online travel agencies themselves. You have the hospitality, you have the airlines. And they all have to work together, but they don't like working together. Yeah, it's really weird. It's super fragmented. And that's what I think the biggest surprise about the travel industry is. I knew it was so big, but I didn't understand like how many different sections there are and how they have to actually come together. So for us to do a deal with pick your favorite country, they also want us to package the tour operator there. They want us to package the travel agents, and they're all kind of kissing each other's asses in a lot of ways. And, unfortunately, I think, there's a lot of corruption too in some of these countries where people literally are like, they want kickbacks. If our, government's going to be spending money, what's in it for me? And so there's a little bit of that as well, which is kind of crazy. Unspoken rule. I guess I'm not too surprised in government, especially foreign governments. But to kind of see it, I think, very open dialogue and open and out in the open. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think you answered a lot. For me, a lot what I see, and I think what I was going to ask you in the follow up on that, a lot of what I experience is, do you almost feel it's an advantage for you, someone who's passionate and believes in what you're building, to almost be that outsider? And so for founders here who have this vision and maybe they're trying to crack a industry that they see that pain point, do you see that as an advantage for you?
100%. That's our differentiator is that we are an outsider and that we're coming in and we're coming at it through a different lens, a different point of view, and asking questions. I think within a startup, when you're operating yourself, you should always ask questions. Why are we doing it this way? If you don't have a good answer, you shouldn't be doing it that way. Simple as that. And so when I'm coming into an industry, I'm like, why is it done that way? Why don't we go this way? And sometimes they just look at me and scratch their head like, yeah, that makes sense, but we just don't do it that way. So I definitely will take coming in as an outsider as an advantage, and I'll take my previous, domain expertise in kind of digital video and IP, intellectual property rights, becoming digital first. That's definitely going to use that as an advantage. So anything that's different, that's unique, I'm definitely leveraging that as much as I can to the best of my ability.
I think the point you just brought up for all the founders, entrepreneurs here is continue to question why. Why is it done this way? And it's okay to ask these questions, especially in an archaic and old school industry like travel. That even if they get excited because they have one thing on social, it's still, as you said, it's been done a certain way. And sometimes when you push the norm, it ruffles feathers, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Tell us one last thing for before I open it up for questions. What are you think the biggest lesson that you are bringing from the success and everything you did for Jukin, for Lost In, and where's this going? What's the vision?
So what's led to the success?
What's the one thing you keep coming back to, and what's the vision? Where are we going to see you in 2 years? Is this something that's going to be your channel? Are we going to be seeing you in a hotel room? Are we going to be just seeing you digital? Where are we seeing you?
Well, I think we're just going to be top of mind. I think first we're going to be multi-platform, real life, books, digital, physical. We want to be top of mind for this younger demographic that I think is largely being ignored. I think also with this demographic, the premium economy traveler, the millennial, you're going to see the biggest transfer of wealth than you've ever seen in this country's history. And what I mean by that is from boomers to their kids. And we like to spend money on experiences. We like to spend money on travel and memories. And I think we want to be at the forefront of that. And we want to be that curation of, the events that you were at. It was a really cool event. It was really fun. It really represented the brand and what we're all about. And so when you're traveling somewhere and you're in this demo, we want to be top of mind. And so you'll find us on multi-platforms. And I think, what's going to lead to a lot of that success is going to be the people. And I mean that internally and externally. I think at the end of the day, there's a quote which I love. I think culture eats strategy for lunch. I think building an internal culture and doing that really early on. When I had Jukin, we had 300 employees, and we were people around the world. But you start with the 3 employees, 2 employees that you have, and whatever it is, and you slowly build that out. And having that internal culture and having those internal ambassadors, having that really strong, that then bleeds out to an external culture, an external community. And so I think it's just so important to nail that right from the very beginning and reinforce your values. I'm not saying you're not going to change and pivot, but your values largely stay the same. And reinforcing that very early on, establishing that very early on, because your early employees are going to be the roots of how this company grows. And it goes internally and then it goes externally. And so I think establishing that culture at your startup is crucial.
Well said. I know I, for one, am very excited to see where this goes. I think I told you when we met last year that this is something I think the travel industry has been needing for a very long time. One last question for you before we open this up. What does travel mean to you?
I think it's really about curiosity and then discovery. Discovering is what I love. And we go back to asking that question, why? Why is it done a certain way? And I'm always been like a student of history and why things, form and transform a certain way. And so to me, it's just about going back to that curiosity and discovering something new and a culture that I never thought about. I went on 2 trips this summer. I went up to India and I went to Sardinia in Italy. And people ask me, which one do you like better? And I can't even compare them because they're 2 totally different trips and they're both totally awesome. Totally 2 different cultures that I freaking appreciated. I freaking loved India. We had an office in India for 8 years. I never visited. Yeah. I always had my COO. I didn't have an interest. But man, when I went there this last summer, so the guy who ran the office was getting married. I said, okay, well, I have to go now. And I went there and I absolutely fell in love with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that you're taking these journeys now, especially with a different lens. Let's give it up for Jon Skogmo. All right. We're going to open it up for a few questions. Anyone have a question? Don't be shy.
I had a question. Last year, I was lucky enough to be in Europe for 3 months, and I discovered a lot of cool, different websites to book my tickets. And for example, they were so cheap. I booked Norway to Denmark, 60 euros. And I noticed here we have Expedia, we have Travel Zoo, and they're horrible. The customer service is even so much worse. Are you going to do something like that for a platform?
It's a great question. You also remind me of something else about Europe travel in the summer and influencers. But
Influencers.
Yeah. I do want to touch on that at some point. But to answer your question directly, we want to think about ways. We don't necessarily want to be in the OTA business. So what you're describing are the OTAs, the online travel agencies, because I do think it's a race to the bottom, and they are all the same. They're all crap. Everyone hates them. The airlines hate them too. The hotels hate them too because they take a big part of their margin, but it's a necessary evil. This is why it goes back to you have to work with them. The hospitality groups have to work with them, but they hate them. That's what this whole industry is. I think we would love, in a perfect world, and I don't want to announce this yet, but we're going to have some sort of subscription membership club. I guess I just announced it. Where those services, those white glove services, will be offered. And by the way, you're coming to us because you trust our credibility. I just mentioned I went to Sardinia and I asked the concierge a question where to go for this restaurant. I explained the vibe that I wanted, and he totally sent us on the long vibe. And it was just totally not what we wanted that night. It was too quiet. It was beautiful, but we wanted a little energy, but it was just we're the only ones at the table, and so we would love to offer that, not necessarily at scale like the OTAs do, but very for a very concentrated group that are paying a little bit more of a premium to get that white glove service, that concierge service. So,
Much like an Inspirato.
yeah, and again, I think they're a little bit too big. You
Too
know,
big, right.
yeah.
So that concierge kind of service to kind of offer the booking without being an OTA on some level.
It might be planning, it might be the booking. I don't want to necessarily want to be the agent
Right.
doing it because the agents get kickbacks from the hotels and the airlines. You know, again, it's a lot of kickbacks. You know, and they're going to put you down the path that where they get the most margin and most money, and we don't want to do that.
I have a second question. Actually, in Portugal, we actually have beautiful artisans and beautiful cultures, and I feel the influencers actually affect that. And and obviously the expats are making it more expensive, and the local businesses are actually like dying off. Are you going to be helping with that?
So this is a great segue. When I was just going to say, so the other thing I hate is I just mentioned Italy. Like I love the Amalfi Coast, but Instagram has made me hate the Amalfi Coast because I see the same fucking shot over and over, and I can't stand it in Capri. And Capri's a beautiful island, and it's now over tourism. You know, it's a real problem in a lot of places. You're seeing it in Barcelona, you're seeing it in Venice, Italy. You're definitely seeing the Amalfi. And I think for us, again, our goal is to uncover those hidden gems. And so it's not this, go over here. It's not this, it's not this, it's that. And so I think our audience is conscious over tourism. And so we would never show those places. So we never want to add to that. And also we want to be respectful to traditions and cultures that are there. And I think that's super important. And I think that's what our audience is. So it's a slightly sophisticated audience. It's not, like I said, first class. It's premium economy. You know, you pay a little bit more for a little bit more leg room. I think our audience actually loves that white tablecloth meal. And they also love the $5 street taco, wherever they find value. And I think with that value and with that kind of little bit prestige comes a little bit more respect. And I think, over tourism is something that we think about.
So another question?
After the Greek crisis in 2008, there was a brain drain of like a younger generation leaving Greece, going to universities in Germany and the UK. With social media and with the opening of the European Union, they came back. It's a big change in Greece now. It's like the top two locations, destinations. And when I went back, I saw this emerging, younger, like mercantile kind of culture that was serviced by social media. When I was there last, I went to a location. Everybody loves Greek fries, the Greek potatoes, but it was Greek potatoes with chili on it, Greek potatoes with marshmallow fluff on it. And it was like a Girls Gone Wild in front of influencers. And I know a lot of people there, and I knew the owners of this particular restaurant, and they were like, what can we do? Like, we need to kind of let them do this, let them help our business. We would never put chili, on Greek fries. But the influencers were there. There was a long line. How are you going to, I know you're talking about like a curated, a special approach. Like, how would you approach the local market with Lost In to kind of give more confidence and help people like that?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think from a high level, I mentioned the media companies, the traditional media, they're falling apart. And I think on the other end, the Instagram is so fragmented. It's just these unauthentic influencers. I call it travel porn. There's a lot of publishers or wannabe publishers that are just recycling the same content, beautiful places. I would love for you guys to check out Lost in Travel on Instagram and kind of see our lens. We're promoting a little bit.
And Lost in Travel Guide as well.
Yeah, we have two. Yeah. So one's for the guidebook and then one's for more the lifestyle. And I think you'll kind of get our sensibility on what we cover. It's really about kind of that culture of travel. And I think it comes back to the audience and community that are a little bit more sophisticated. Like to combat that, we would make fun of that. We make fun of bros. We make fun of, Disney adults, if there's any in this room. People would rather go to Disney than go to, the real place. They rather, fly across country than to go to, the Coliseum. I think that sensibility and I think that character and that personalization and personality really comes out through our brand, and we want to continue to reinforce that. And so, yes, we would absolutely make fun of putting marshmallows on Greek fries. We make fun of dumb Americans. Yeah, we absolutely do. Yeah, there's a lot of them. And I want to continue that. I hope we continue to reinforce that. And we kind of, say, again, like we'll show the tourist trap, and then we'll show this is what the real traveler does, And so I think highlighting that, reinforcing that, I hope that's what's going to make our brand stick out than some of these travel porn pages that are just, recycling the same images.
Right. It comes back to being the traveler, not the tourist, right? The tourist is take from the local, where the traveler wants to come in and leave it better than they found it. Do we have time for one or two more questions?
Mine's a little long-winded. So what kind of impact do you think that AI will have on the travel industry at large and your place in it, if any?
I'm curious to hear your thoughts too, Michael. But so you're seeing a little bit when it comes to itinerary and travel, but again, it almost becomes another source. So it's like you Google something, then you actually go down and look it up. And for me, it's just another tab, and all those tabs I'm talking about. I think you shouldn't ever just, if you're the type of person that's just going to book something off just like AI itineraries, I think you're definitely the wrong person for Loston, the Loston brand. To me, it's just another tab, and some people are going to find that useful. It's going to be another tool. I think when it comes down to content creation with an AI, you're seeing a lot of that. If you scroll through your feed, probably a third of it right now, and it's only in next week, in a month from now, will be half, is going to be AI kind of created content and media. I think the moat that we have, that again, it's authentic, organic. We're never AIers when it comes to content creation. We may use it for the back end, for processes, workflow, but when it comes to content creation, our moat is those authentic pictures, right? And so I don't think it's gonna affect us. It's funny, maybe I would have raised more money if I added AI to my deck. And then probably everyone in this room has felt that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're kind of AI nevers, and I don't think it will from that standpoint.
Yeah. I think there's a place in travel for AI, but I think it really comes to that planning side of it. From the authentic travel experience, it's tangible. You have to go see for yourself. There will be AI aspects within your content. They will be there. You're not going to stop it. But at the heart of it, I don't think it does the justice of actually going and experiencing India or Italy for yourself. So that's where I think you need to decipher for yourself as a traveler, as a consumer, what is authentic and what really speaks to you. And the last question, go for
I
it.
can definitely relate with the whole AI thing. We're raising money from the UK, and it feels in San Francisco especially. Thank you for your story. I really good luck with all your continued success, and it's great to hear it. My question is, as a founder, what is one thing you wish you knew sooner, that you kind of only could have had to learn through experience, that you're taking into your second startup?
Great question. And someone just asked me this the other day. I think, Jukin was a 12-year journey, and that's I think the minimum time. I think most startups, the average startup is 15 years, and I do think you hear about the startups that happen, that happen in 2 years or 5 years, or Mark Zuckerberg creates it out of fucking Harvard. Get that out of your head. Those are the luckiest ones, and most of us are not lucky. Most of us, luck comes from hard work, like I said before. And so I think just kind of reminding yourself that this is a sprint, or this is a marathon and not a sprint, that it takes time and it takes execution, and it's at bite-sized chunks. And the more you're taking out of those bite-sized chunks, the more you're going to go up the ladder. Because I think, again, mental health and burnout, I think is really real. And I think I was at one point in my career where I felt like if I wasn't working and going out every single night to every single event, traveling to everything, I wasn't doing myself justice. And you have to know when to say no and know when to take care of yourself. Even though you have to be selfish and all those things, you still have to find that balance to, I think, concentrate on yourself and realize that this is a long journey, and tell yourself that. And it's going to go ups and downs. It's never up and to the right, and I think keeping your head in the game and being optimistic and seeing that there will be light at the end of the tunnel is super important. Not living kind of the day-to-day, as we all know, founders in this room. It could be great in the morning and terrible at the end of the day, but don't focus on those kind of, that volatility. and think about that long game, and really think about the marathon, and prepare yourself for that marathon as best as you can.
Well said. Show of hands. Who in this room is a traveler, though? That's right. So everyone is. We're all travelers. Make sure you give Lost In a follow on Instagram. Check out Lost In Guidebooks. Also, again, my name is Mike Schibel, the host of the Travel with Meaning podcast. Thank you all so much for being here today. And let's give it up one more time for Jon.
Thank you.